Welcome to Maine Concerns, where our news team gives you a closer look at the events that happened around Maine this week.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Cindy Campbell. Today we're going to address a couple of situations that may be made even more challenging by the current stay-at-home climate, including for people who are in recovery from addiction. But first, I chatted with Dorathy Martel of the Next Step Domestic Violence Project about how the pandemic is affecting the way they're helping people in abusive relationships. Okay, so tell us about Next Step Domestic Violence Project and, in better times, some of the things that you offer.
Okay, we are the Domestic Violence Resource Center that serves Washington and Hancock counties. We're a member of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence, so we work with the other domestic violence projects across the state to foster a response to domestic violence that both helps people who are affected by domestic violence and tries to change our culture so that domestic violence becomes a thing of the past. In normal times, and now to a lesser degree, we offer a wide variety of programs. The thing that is central is our 24-hour helpline, where people can call and we can help them plan for their safety. We can validate their feelings. We help people to plan for their safety and to explore what's going on in their lives regarding the abuse and what it would take to have a life that's free from abuse. So the helpline is the primary way that people reach us in any time. We do have resource centers in Machias and in Ellsworth, so people can come in when we're not in the midst of a pandemic and we can meet with them directly, and that's something that we're not doing right now. We're not meeting face-to-face. Okay. We also do have an emergency shelter. We offer some supportive housing units where we can help people get back on their feet again when they have to start over due to abuse. We have a legal program where we have an ability to represent some people in protection orders and family matters related to domestic violence. And even when we can't represent them, we have court advocates who can support people through various court processes. We do community education. We have liaisons with the child welfare system, with law enforcement. Recently, we started a batterer intervention program in Washington County, which is new for us, and unfortunately that's been waylaid a bit by the current situation.
Right. A little bit of everything.
I think that's the overview of our services.
Okay. Domestic abuse, I think when people think domestic abuse, they think domestic violence, but it isn't always violent, is it? It comes in a lot of different forms.
It does come in a lot of different forms, and you're right, violence is what people think of first, but often it is much more subtle to the outside world, controlling someone's behavior, calling them names, making all the decisions about money, taking a partner's money and not letting them spend it the way they choose. Really, one of the most insidious things is controlling someone's reality. So, telling them this is normal, the way I treat you is normal, and there's something wrong with you for not accepting it. Isolating people from friends and family. And, any one of these things on its own may not seem like abuse, but usually these are tactics of power and control, and they work together to keep a person from being safe and having their own autonomy. And we generally see multiple tactics, and sometimes there is violence, physical violence, only once. And then the violence never has to occur again because the threat, coupled with all these other tactics, is always there.
Right. Is it fair to say that if someone thinks they may be in an abusive situation, they should reach out and get more information?
Absolutely. We're not going to turn anyone away or, weigh whether or not it qualifies as abuse. If someone is in a relationship and feels like the way they're being treated is not okay, then we can help them with that. We can help them talk it through. We can help them decide if it's safe to ask for something to be different, if it's safe to end the relationship. People know their own situation best, but we're not going to say, oh, no, sorry, that doesn't qualify as abuse. We're not going to talk to you.
Right. There's a stigma that goes with that, too. I mean, reaching out is difficult, not only to bring yourself to be able to do it, but the fear of what other people are going to think. And that needs to end.
That does. And one of the benefits of calling a helpline is we're generally strangers to the person who's calling, and our services are confidential. People can be anonymous if they choose. And our job is not to judge, it's to listen and be helpful. So anybody who reaches out to us can be confident that we are not going to say, that's your fault. In fact, we're going to say, if somebody is doing something harmful to you, that's not your fault. That's a choice that they are making. It would be nice if our culture allowed people to be more open about what's happening to them without fear of being judged or shamed, but that's not always the case. And sometimes that judgment comes from a place of caring, but the person who's doing it doesn't really understand enough about the dynamics of domestic abuse to be helpful. So sometimes even a best friend or a loved family member who wants to be helpful might say something that will feel judgmental or blaming, and
Right.
That's why calling us can be really helpful.
Yeah, nerves are very raw at that point. Very, very easy to feel like people are judging you.
It is, and even
So-
if they're not, it's easy to feel that way.
Yeah, so worth reaching out, though. There is life after that kind of situation.
There absolutely is, and domestic violence, domestic abuse is so much more common than people think, and I think that often people think, oh, well, this is just me, this doesn't happen to other people, but just in Washington and Hancock County, we serve almost 1,000 individual people a year. So that tells you something about how prevalent it is.
Right.
So you're definitely, somebody who reaches out for help is definitely not alone. And whatever they tell us, it's not going to be the first time we heard it.
Right. Now, I would think that the current stay-at-home situation would aggravate that kind of relationship.
We believe absolutely that it does. If you can't walk away from someone at all, if you're right in a sort of pressure cooker of a home, if people are already controlling your space and now it's not allowed, to leave and there's no place to go, you can't go to a friend's house, that is going to make it worse. The thing that we as advocates are really concerned about is it also means that there's less opportunity for someone to reach out safely. So if you're at home with the person who's abusing you, you have to find creative ways to get in touch with someone who can be helpful.
Right.
And that's a concern. It's a huge concern.
A lot of extra pressure on people, too, with people being out of work and financial strains and just a lot of extra unusual pressure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And having kids home and being responsible for, perhaps homeschooling children. If you don't have the experience doing that, that can add pressures and bring up, differences in parenting styles that in a healthy relationship you can work through. But in an abusive relationship can just be part of the manipulation.
Right.
Things like, well, if you were a better mom, you would be able to keep the kids in line. Or, if you were smarter, you would be able to teach them math. And
Right.
so that can be an added stressor.
So someone right now that's in an abusive situation, what are their options? What are some of the things they can do?
Our helpline still is available 24 hours a day. So if they can find a way to safely call us, we really encourage them to do that. We know that not everyone can. If they are able to talk to family or friends and can briefly say, I could use some help, the family and friends can call and we can talk through, we can't talk about an individual person, but let's say you called me and said, I'm concerned about my neighbor, I don't know what to do, and she doesn't know what to do. We might be able to work through some safety planning that you might be able to pass on because perhaps the abuser won't think twice about you talking to her, but would notice if we did. We do encourage people to, if they are going to call us, right now we're using an answering service, so we would have to call them back so that they keep that in mind, although calls can sometimes be patched through, but it's good to clear your call history. If you email us, we don't generally do advocacy by email because we don't know for sure who's on the other end.
Right.
But if there's no other way to reach out, at least it can put them on our radar and maybe we can problem solve some other option. One of the things that I spend an awful lot of time these days fielding questions about is shelter. We do currently have people in our shelter and we're at capacity, but we do encourage people who need shelter to call us and we can help problem solve. The governor has shut hotels and motels down now except for use for people who are experiencing homelessness or need to leave home because of domestic violence. And so there may be ways that people can get into hotels. That's something we're still exploring with the state and other homeless service providers. So I don't want people to think, oh, their shelter's not available because of the virus and I shouldn't even bother to call. If they can get to us, if they can get through to us, they can. The only thing that we're not doing at all right now is meeting people face to face.
Face to face. Okay.
Yep.
And for folks who are in other parts of the state, I know you're Hancock and Washington County, 211 is a good resource for finding resources in your area.
211 is a good resource, and then also there is a statewide hotline number. So if they didn't know which domestic violence resource center was in their area, they could call this number. It's 1-866-834-HELP, HELP.
Okay. And what is your hotline number?
Our hotline number is 1-800-315-5579.
Okay. And anyone who's in an emergency situation and feeling in danger, 911.
Yes, absolutely. We can't come and intervene, but the police still are responding to calls. And another thing I should point out is that people can still get protection from abuse orders. The courts are working on ways to make that possible to do electronically. Our court advocates are still available. We are still taking legal referrals. So if something comes up that can't wait regarding a legal procedure related to abuse, people should call up the helpline and we will help them problem solve that and do a legal request if they need one.